Good evening. Welcome, everyone. Please stand for the pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks to all the veterans and their family for their sacrifice. It's always been appreciated. Well, some of the things that are going on in the city is we're waiting on some word back. We do have a well that we have drilled. We're waiting on the state to come back and give us the clearance. They're okay with the results, and then we will decide the best route to go from there. And hopefully we can get a viable well before the end of the year. Now it won't be up and running by the end of the year because you have to put in a well house and run a line and from the wellhead and things of that nature, but it would be nice to know that we're going to go into the new year with a possibility of producing around 90,000 gallons is what we're hoping, 90,000 a day. We require about 275,000 gallons a day to support our current population. The spring produces approximately 110 to 120,000 a day. When you add 90 to it, it brings us a considerable distance from where we were. And then we will look at, probably will be the new administration, look at other possibilities and hopefully another well sometime next year. So we've had several bores that the street department has had to do out here on 211. There's 10. They've done a couple on Dock McLaughlin, and they've done several out on Providence. I think it was 6 or 7 on Providence that had to go from the right side and bore under to the left side to the homes that are being built there. We've had a considerable number of leaks. Jordan says that generally that is when it gets a lot colder, but we've, in some of the hottest days, popped up with water leaks that they have worked on. They've done 86 water locates and 30 sewer locates for the month of October alone. So, biggest problem, we check the lift stations every day, make sure that they're functioning. And one of the biggest problems with those that needs to be cleaned out is the so-called flushable wipes. They are flushable, but they're not dissolvable. So they do clog things up, and they have been known to burn out the pumps on these lift stations. The small ones, it's about roughly $3,500 to $3,800 for a pump, and they have 2 at every station, and that's one of the smaller ones. So, for instance, Woodbury, I think, is the smallest one at this time. So, if you had to replace both those pumps, $7,600 out of the city's coffers. So, just something to be aware of. Grease is another problem, and some solids. And sometimes I think you get little kids that tend to probably flush things that they shouldn't. But trash is an ongoing problem, as everyone knows, and they continue to pick up several large bags, especially along the right-of-ways and the Atlanta Highway, and they will continue to do so. We do have 2 new guys on the street department. One, I believe, is about 2 months on board, and the other one, I think, coming up on 3 weeks. So it seems to be working out, and we are considering at least 1 or 2 more we can bring them on board. So that's kind of the rundown a little bit. I got a little email from the library. Susie Dukes says that they want to do a grand opening celebration on December the 11th. And so she wanted me to mention it, and so consider it mentioned. I believe it starts at 11 a.m. So, and then they'll have an open house. I believe they're planning on having the Grinch and Cindy Lou Who. It doesn't say anything about Santa Claus, so I think it's just those two. They'll have some refreshments from noon to 1. So that's an update from me and from the Public Works. So at this point, I'm going to open up the public hearing. The first public hearing has to do with the millage rate for tax year 2021. And it is the City of Statham's property tax levy for Barrow County increase for the 2021 tax year by $40,000. And I apologize that I got my numbers wrong at the last meeting. It is not 300,000, it is 40,000. The City of Statham anticipates the property tax levies for Barrow County for the tax year 21 will be set at 4.345 mils. And this represents a 16.64% increase from the proposed rollback. And we have to figure that rate based on the state recommending that we roll back our millage to 3.725. We're currently, I believe, 4.08.
4.003.
Okay, thank you very much.
Is that again, please?
This last year's millage rate was 4.003 cents.
So, a tax report was provided to me, the mayor, the council, and citizens on September 9th. Work session is available. It was at the work session, and it is available at City Hall as well as on the website, and it was provided on our Facebook social media page as well. So I'm going to open up the public hearing for the millage rate, and if anyone signed up for the millage rate,
Yes.
what we would like to do is if you have like comments and you have a group of 3, 4, or 5 with like comments, if you would, rather than everyone said what he said, what she said, if you could basically pick a representative, and our city attorney will keep track of the time, and we allow 10 minutes for the pro and 10 minutes for the against. So the first.
Ms. Venable's the only one asked to speak about the millage rate. I'm gonna kind of put it together, pro and con, I guess. When I went over everything and I looked, I came to the conclusion, you have 3 choices. You either increase, decrease, or leave it the same. And when I was working the numbers, the 40,000 off of, was it last year's taxes that it's based off of?
Yes.
Okay, that helped me a lot right there. Okay, so the first case scenario, I was working off what was projected for this year and was a little bit higher. So what I want to understand is the state is asking for a rollback of 3.725. Is that where the 40,000 comes into?
No, the $40,000 increase comes from the difference between what was budgeted last year versus what was budgeted this year for the property tax, which is a $40,000 increase from last year.
Okay, So what would be the difference in what we're being asked to roll back, a dollar amount?
Well, in my
$40,000.
case, you would, if you looked at mine, last year we rolled it back as a council.
Correct.
And last year it made a difference of $12 a year for my wife and I on our taxes.
Yeah.
At that point, I said I would rather leave it alone than ask for an increase next year. So this year, it would mean a difference of about $55 for us, or less than $3 a month difference on our mortgage.
So what is the justification to increase it?
The budget deficit in the budget this year versus last year is $40,000.
But didn't we budget $40,000 more this year? Are you saying, what I'm trying to say is, we already received one stimulus check. And what was that dollar amount?
And that is separate from the millage.
Right, no, I get that, but what was that dollar amount?
Stimulus, are you referring to the American Rescue Plan Act?
Yes,
Okay, that would be $530,000.
so we received that check.
Correct.
Okay, so we're getting an increase of money into the city of that, where we can allocate projects that will follow underneath that guideline of that usage.
No.
We cannot use.
There are 4 things that you can use that money for.
Mhm.
If you have a business who is struggling, the city could make available funds to keep that business from going under. We do not, to our knowledge, have that in the city.
Okay.
The water restoration or exploration or sewer projects.
Mhm.
And so those are 2, so that's 3. And the 4th one is, struggling business, water or sewer renovations. And there was one other one that I can't think off the top of my head, but we can't allocate the essential workers. No,
Well,
no,
yes
it wasn't
and,
that, was
yes
it?
and no.
Okay.
It went into some COVID-19 hardship.
Okay.
So
Which
it
kind of
has
went
multiple.
hand in hand with your business struggling due to the COVID. And we can't take that $530,000 and divvy it up into projects that we'd like to do. Because it being a grant, we are accountable for every dollar.
Mhm.
And so we have to kind of stay with what it is, what we can possibly do here as a city.
Correct.
And it would be water or sewer.
And we're gonna have those projects.
Yeah,
So we're not gonna be using some of the funds for those projects, and those are our biggest projects right now in the city as it stands. So the way my viewpoint as a citizen here is I just feel no lower, no higher, leave it alone, because we are having allocated funds to offset 2 of our major projects. So I just cannot foresee, even if it's $55, $3 a day, whatever it would be, is at this point, for me personally as a citizen, rolling it back or increasing it. That's just my viewpoint.
If I'm not mistaken, there's another check that's coming in,
not until 2022.
okay, but
And
it'll
we
be
don't-
in this fiscal year.
Not necessarily, because we thought that we were gonna receive this one at the end of last fiscal year, and we didn't. They just basically said, by June 30th, they'll start the distribution. So it's probably going to be in FY '23 by the time that we actually collect those funds.
And that's why I was only going on what we already received, because I know government, I work for government. Sometimes they say they're gonna give you something, you may or may not get it, or you may get it later. But that's just my viewpoint as a citizen.
And I have a question, I guess, in regards in regards to the CARES Act, how is the city going to decide where those funds are allocated to?
Again, we don't have a lot of choices. You can say, well, it's going into our general fund, so we can use it for whatever we want. We are obligated to follow 4 guidelines. We only qualify for 2 of those in the city of Statham.
Right.
The big outcry from the public has always been, let's have better water, let's be independent. Might I remind everyone that we spend about $1.2 million every 3 years buying water from Winder and from the county. And as I said, if we can get this well approved and we can get it in production, we're going to 2/3 of or more of what we need to sustain us. It will be between the well and the spring. And we have applied for some grants that are totally independent of our budgets and our audits that could restore the 54-acre lake, improve the filtration system, and give us a viable source there. And that is permitted for 1.2 million gallons a day. So that's 3 times more than what we need right now in order to sustain the city. So everything else would be over and above that, and maybe we could be selling water to other municipalities instead of buying it.
Are we allowed to ask a question? I know we have to sign up to speak on certain issues and.
If it has to do with the millage,
But I want to ask a question about the millage. Can I ask about that? Very good. I just want to ask about that. I know that the county has reassessed property. So property values are going up because my county taxes are way up. So, you know, the city of Statham uses those property values. So everybody's property values, their taxes are going to go up regardless of whether you know, it really go up a lot if you increase the millage. I feel like it needs to be left just what it is.
you feel it should be, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Mayor, might I just add, now, the council can vote on essentially whatever millage rate they want.
Yeah.
But just understand that if you decide to vote to keep it the same as what it was this last year, the 4.003, that is still technically an increase from the rollback rate. So you were still technically increasing the millage. So I just wanted to clarify that in case anybody
I
understood.
understand that, too, but
Any other
it won't
comments?
be as much, that's what y'all want to do.
Right, it would be the difference between the 4.003 on your assessment value versus the 4.345.
Yes. Mhm.
Again, I just reiterate, in my case, last year, by rolling it back, we paid $12 a year less in mortgage payments. That's $1 a month. And I said then, I would sooner leave it, but it was rolled back. Now this year, the state is saying, roll it back again. And because the county has assessed everybody more, that's why my wife and I will pay $55 more a year. If we were still assessed at the same rate, we would probably be about $30 by going to the new rate. But everybody's value, yes, has gone up. But
that's
it
a
would
lot of
be
money for
less
some
than
people.
$3 a month on our mortgage by going with the higher rate. And we're assessed at about $225,000. So that'll give you an idea.
Now, I
Just
think
for
the
the
public
public.
hearing is just for opinions, you know,
Yeah.
and my opinion is, if you're not gonna roll it back, then you need to leave it the same and you don't need to increase it. That's my opinion.
Okay.
I know the city's struggling because we have had a water treatment plant that has shut down for 2 years, and that was our money. And I know y'all are struggling with it, but sometimes we just have to make adjustments in budgets and cut back.
Any other comments on the millage rate?
I want to say that I agree that we just need to leave it the same.
Okay.
The way it is, I agree.
Mayor, I got
Yes.
a few comments. Excuse me. I think a lot of confusion
on this millage rate has stemmed from percentages and mills, and it's confusing. It's confusing for me sitting up here trying to make a decision on this. Just for clarity, as I understand it, the city is asking for a proposed 4.345 mils. Our current millage rate from last year is 4.003 mils. And the state is requesting us to roll back to 3.725 mils. So as I understand it, the people in the audience who have spoken is requesting that the city leave the millage rate at 4.003 mils, even though that's technically an increase from the proposed rollback that the state is sending us. Just from my standpoint on the millage rate, personally, I don't think $40,000 is going to make a break project. I know that there was over $40,000 in contingency, and there was $40,000 that I had requested to be budgeted. So I know that, you know, the CARES Act money can only be spent on certain things, and one of those things that we've been talking about doing is water lines, replacement of that. But again, I think once the city gets more self-sufficient on the water, which we're working towards right now, and once we get our audits completed, where we can get LMIG and grant monies, I believe that will help offset. I know it won't be immediate, but I believe it will help offset having increased taxes. That's just my personal opinion.
No further comments? Do we need a motion, Counselor, to go out of public hearing for that, to go to the next one?
We can move on to, we can have a single public hearing for the entirety of the public hearing items, and then have a motion to close the end of those.
Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda is R-21-08 Presidential Oak Property LLC by Mitchell Tress, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, is the applicant. Margaret Ann Hamway is the property owner. Seek to rezone the property, which is 9 acres, fronting the south side of Atlanta Highway, southeast and the west side of Mulberry Street, which is a part of map parcel STO2/029, from SR1 Suburban Residential 1 District to multifamily residential, proposed use 62 fee simple townhouses. So I will open it up to public discussion for.
You want to let Jerry present first?
Yes, I'm sorry. Didn't mean to overlook you, Jerry, but you moved you on me. So Jerry Weiss is our planning officer for the city. I'll allow him the opportunity here.
Thank you, Mayor. As you said, I'm Jerry Weiss. I'm a consultant city planner for the city, and charged with looking at these requests and making recommendations to the city council on items to consider. And for this project, the staff wrote a staff report, looked at surrounding land uses, the future land use plan, and reviewed the criteria associated with rezoning requests, and concluded with a recommendation that you should approve the project or rezoning with several conditions. Now, I would like to say that I overlooked, I'm embarrassed to say, but I overlooked the fact that Mulberry Street is only a one-way dirt road. And I didn't see,
Hold your
I didn't
comments,
pick
please.
up on that by virtue of looking at the, didn't come over from Alpharetta to look at the site. but I did look at it tonight, so that would change the opinion, at least in terms of what the conditions were. For example, it may be that because of the condition of Mulberry Street, either the applicant, if you were to approve the project, would need to be built entirely to a standard, to a new standard, not just what I put in there about right-of-way, dedication of half of the right-of-way needed, and also pavement. It would really need to be built to, if they're going to access that road, it needs to at least be a standard city street there, and I believe there's enough code language as it is to require that. But in any event, then there's an issue about the right-of-way. I don't think Mulberry Street is only a 30-foot right-of-way total, and then if you say, well, let's have the developer improve that road, then you don't have enough right-of-way to really improve it. So what that may lead us to think is, if you want to approve it, it may be that we've got to work out something better on Mulberry Street, or have them come off of Atlanta Highway, which is, of course, that used to be a state route, but that's a county road, city road now, and it may be better. The applicant's engineer, Matt Sullins, drew the plan as if it's got a stormwater pond in the area where it would otherwise be accessible to the highway, and I guess that's because it's a low spot. It's probably the low spot of the property. But that's the staff report, summary of the staff report, and I can answer questions if the council has it, or obviously the applicant is going to be here, I hope, to speak to the project and defend it, and then we can have public hearing on the other, for the opposition if there is any. That's all I have at this time here.
Any questions for Mr. Weiss? No one on the council? Okay. Yes.
I have a few questions.
Oh.
Do I need to approach the front, or can I?
Do you have one?
He didn't sign.
And I'm representing Matt Sullins. He's out
Okay.
tonight, so.
Yes, fine.
The proper procedure for this, Mayor, would be the proponent, anybody who speaks in favor of it, would be during their 10-minute proponent time. So the planner's time is reserved for questions from the council, and then the proponent can come up and speak, and if they ask specific questions, they can ask during that time. I understand, that would be a proponent, so they would become the part of the 10 minutes.
All right, so the council does not have any questions for Mr. Weiss? No.
I would like to ask.
So no comments on, or questions from?
I do have one comment. I think it improves the surrounding area. Okay, so as a matter of procedure, what has to happen is the city planner gave his report. Now the proponents, applicants, would have 10 minutes to present their case, and after that, then other citizens, if they're to speak, if there's time left, citizens that want to speak in favor of it will be able to fill the remaining 10 minutes, the remainder of the 10 minutes, I should say, and then there'll be 10 minutes for those opposed. That's the procedure for a zoning public hearing.
Okay, so there's no questions from the council. So at
Right,
this
so
point,
now we move to the proponents, 10-minute time.
and that would be,
Is the applicant here tonight?
Yeah, I'm right here. He's actually back.
Would you like to present first, I guess? Would that be appropriate? And then we can take, questions after that.
That's all.
Okay.
Just looking at all of the, what you guys recommended, I mean, everything that was recommended we agreed with, we were fine with doing. You know, we're willing to work with you guys as long as, you know, we can make it work on our end. And we want to be easy to work with, so whatever you guys propose, as long as the engineers can make it work, you know, we want to be easy to work with, and we just, you know, like I said, everything that was proposed on there, we're okay with. So that's all I really got for you guys. If you guys have any questions?
I had a question,
Yeah.
for you. I had a question regarding the access to the property.
Yeah.
Did y'all have plans to increase the condition of Mulberry Street?
Yes, so we were gonna give up part of our property in order to improve the street.
But you're not gonna enter and exit the property from Atlanta Highway?
No, sir. No, sir,
There's no, okay.
it'll be all from Mulberry Street.
So there's no other access, ingress, egress, other than Mulberry.
Just
For the
Mulberry Street.
commercial lots, maybe they're moving perhaps.
Yeah, the commercial,
From Atlanta Highway.
for the commercial lots, but as far as the townhomes, it would be from Mulberry. But we had the plan to improve the road.
Well, I have a question. Since you're gonna have to redo Mulberry Street, that's gonna affect the amount of townhouses you plan to build?
Like I said, as long as we can make it work, 62 is what we proposed. We may have to give up a little more, but the engineers can make work with the way the property will lay out, with adding the road. And if you have any questions for that, he may be able to help you.
What is all this engineering? Sir, when you said that Mulberry Street will have to be built in 460, according to... Yeah, I'm sorry. When you say that Mulberry Street needs to be built to full city standards, can you elaborate more on that? Because I thought that was part of the conditions of the administration report.
No, my recommendation was based on it being close to a standard road already. It's not, but what I recommended was 30 feet right-of-way dedication from the center line, which Mr. Solom's plan recognized already. That's really what the code requires, and that they pave 13 feet from the center line of the road, plus a deceleration lane, which is called for in the code. But now, what I would suggest is that knowing that road is not even suitable for two-way traffic, that it would have to be, it would need to be a 26-foot wide pavement from back of curb to back of curb, and also the right-of-way that's available. I think that the applicant would have to give up more than the 30 feet of right-of-way, because what we'd be left with is 45 feet, and you need 50 feet, or 50 to 60 feet if 60 feet if there's no curb and gutter. That gives you enough land for ditches and so forth. So what I'm saying is that I would modify, in light of the fact that road is a lot worse than I thought, I would modify my recommendation to say either you come off of Atlanta Highway, or you do basically a full improvement, which would be a 60-foot right of way. There's 45. We need another 15 feet. I think that maybe, unless the other property owners are going to give it, then you need to come on this side of it and offset the road and basically build the road to a standard at least to the driveway, if not the full property. Probably it would be to the full property frontage, and that may be a cost that you weren't considering. So, okay.
Any other question for these gentlemen here?
I have one more question. In the report it says fee simple units can be public or private, the roads. Is that in fact correct?
Yes.
Okay. So as far as front setbacks for our townhomes, that would be up to us?
No, there's still setback required for the MFR zoning district.
Yeah, for the adjoining properties, but since it's going to be a private drive, I think the MFR front setback is 35 feet, which would be very problematic for us to do that. So, since it's going to be a private street, can we reduce that setback?
Well, you could ask for a variance, but the setback of 35 feet is still required if you're going to put lots in. That's what we mean by fee simple. Because if you're going to divide them into individual lots where each unit's on its own lot.
Could the lot go to the center line of the road? Where does that front property line stop if it's going to be a private drive?
No, you can't draw them to the center line of the road. You've got to show it as as an access to utility easement that's private.
Yeah, it would be wood,
Uh-huh.
but, I mean, how wide, since there's not gonna be right of way, it'll essentially be utilities in a private drive. What are we basing that front setback off of?
It would be the same, essentially the same as a public street, the same
Which
thing,
is 50?
50 foot wide with curb and gutter.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Principal, you need to stand up.
Any-
My wife has very big interest.
Could I ask a question, please? Okay, you're going to be building fee simple, okay, houses. That means individual ownership, or is there going to be a plan where you build it and then all of them become rental units, as fee simple? What is your plan?
There's gonna be single family,
Okay, and okay, but they are single family and they're gonna be up for sale immediately to the customer and not held out as rental units as a complex.
yes,
As fee
there will
simple.
be up for sale.
Okay, the reason I'm asking is we've been inundated with 3 of these projects in our community. And I don't live here, forgive me, but I own the property next door to where you are, on the corner there where the lock house is.
Okay.
Okay, so I know that if you come over any further, you're gonna be into my house, you know, with right of way, and we can't have that.
I'm not gonna
Yeah,
Point blank.
okay, and if you go in with a,
Mayor, I'm very sorry, but this sounds like we're into opposition now.
oh, no, I'm not
That-
trying, I'm very much in favor of whatever they wanna do, as long as they do it properly, because you want the highest and best use for the property.
I understand, I'm just simply trying to follow the zoning procedures act law,
Okay.
so we just need to make sure that we keep it compartmentalized.
Yes, sir.
So,
And, okay.
See, Brennan really is knowledgeable of these things. I mean, it's just, we just acquired the house, had a real estate sign on Remax. It caught my eye, we went out looking for a nice settlement, a new Statham, since I do business in the city. And that beautiful home came available. It's a log home that was converted from a very old house around 1910. So I'm just saying, we like beauty. The forest next to us there
Mayor,
drew our attention.
I have to,
Yeah, I apologize, as a parliamentarian, I have to make sure that we follow the right procedures.
so, at this point, is there any more time left on,
Yes, if there are any additional individuals that want to speak in favor of the project, there's still 8 minutes remaining for the proponent.
Is there any more questions?
I don't have any further questions for you as the applicant. I take it that you are Mitchell.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So speaking, in favor of this, do we have anyone that signed up or anyone that wants to speak in favor of this, this rezone? Okay, so do we reserve the time for that?
They can reserve time if it's requested, but now we just should move into opposition. 10 minutes total for opposition.
Now, again, let me ask that if you have multiple people with the same opinion, in the interest of time, could you basically select one individual and you have 10 minutes?
We would be using our 10 minutes to discuss internally then, to see if we had common views.
So,
So we're kind of lost there.
anyone signed in opposition?
So start.
Yeah, Ms. C, yeah.
Well, I'm gonna my property does not back up right on
But it affects you, you're here in
But it
favor.
does affect me but it affects the whole city. Because these are a lot of units and we do not have that infrastructure right now. We don't. And it's gonna affect all the traffic out on the highway, all that's coming through. So that's what I really have to say about it. And, it's just gonna affect, all these people, their way of life, it will affect them a lot. But I'm gonna defer and let everybody else who's got property right there backing up to it speak on it.
Chairman Larry?
Number one, I live on Mulberry Street.
And your name, sir?
Property is taken.
Larry.
Your sir, your name, sir?
Larry.
Thank you.
And I live on Mulberry Street. So in order to widen Mulberry Street, you're gonna be taking my property. Plain and simple. And putting a multi-unit, trying to put 62 units on 9 acres where you've got streets, you've got retainer ponds, everything else, there's not going to be enough square footage as far as availability. And not for families to buy. To build townhomes here in Georgia, what else is there? And then you're talking about the roads, you've got to improve it all the way around to Price Street. Okay? And you already got a whole bunch of traffic running on Price Street now. And they fixing it to 316 at 211, increasing traffic again. On Atlanta Highway getting out, most every day, it takes 10 minutes of sitting at a stop sign, backed up, trying to get out on Atlanta Highway at times. What are you gonna do when you add 120 more cars to it? And if you take Mulberry Street, they're not gonna go out on Atlanta Highway, because they can't get out on it, so they're always gonna take the back road. Okay? And you got a sharp curve right there on that back road. People fly on that road. And they fly down Price. So the property values of that community that's been there is going to be diminished. Our property is going to be valued by probably half. Like some of the others can say something, they live on that road.
Thank you.
My name's Pam Gillen. I just want to say I live on 360 Mulberry Street. I don't know how many of y'all have drive down Mulberry Street, but it is truly very, I mean, it is just a one-way street most of the way. There's like not even half of it that's paved, and the rest of it is dirt roads. When it rains a lot, there's a pond all the way across the road. It's very rough. And just from the garbage trucks, I realize the garbage trucks have to run by there, but they're tearing that dirt road all to pieces. And their property that they have only goes so far. And, you know, it's going to affect my property because I have property right past where their property they're proposing to build on. Mr. and Miss King, I know them. I know several other people. And it's going to ruin our property values. It's going to ruin our quality of life. You know, right now I'm able to look across the street and see a wooded area that's very nice. We do not have enough, we do not have enough space over there to have that much extra traffic coming through Mulberry Street. I don't care how wide you make it. Because, I mean, you know, it's Larry and them, I mean, they're at that sharp corner where basically it's going to be taking some people's yards away from them, if not their whole house. And it's not a good idea at all. I mean, I don't know what else to say. I've never spoken to these things before, but I can tell you that it's not a good idea to have that kind of traffic coming through by Mulberry Street. A lot of the houses are pretty close to the road already, and I know there's got to be a lot of space taken up on each side of the road, or I don't know how they plan to do it. But this is our private property. They don't own the street, the whole Mulberry Street, so it's going to impact us greatly in our quality of life. You know, because we already have Price Street in front of us and Mulberry Street behind us, and it's just going to ruin our quality of life. And you know, I don't know how everybody else feels about it, and I'm not going to take up all the time, but it's not a good idea. It's not a good idea for our neighborhood, for our little community right here to have all that extra traffic and all the extra people coming through this tiny little area that they're proposing to bring it into. And that's basically all I can think to say right now, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Debbie,
Then just so we know, we have 5 minutes remaining.
5 minutes, okay.
Debbie.
Yes.
I'll go real quick. I remind council that we have proposed 50 houses over there that is included in that off Sunset, because that land that we're talking about on Atlanta Highway backs up into that area. I don't know where the condominiums are going to go, or I have not seen any drawings. I don't know that anybody knows anything about this, and I heard about this at the last minute. But what I'm saying is, we've already got 50 houses that we're building over there. So times 2, that's 100 cars, plus the cars that are already going through there now, plus the storage unit there coming out of Sunset. We've got a lot of traffic over there already. Now, I'm not against economic development. I'm not against growth. I'm not against that. But there is a quality of life. Go ahead, Gary.
Well, I'd just like to say, if any of you's ever been up that dirt road, there's no place to go. And if you come up through there, they're gonna have to come through my property and take my property, not to mention everybody else's. And I just started.
Let me just say, that we're not taking it, okay?
Well, they are.
So, they're making a proposal, okay?
Well,
So you're, go ahead with your opposition. I'm not
By the
listening.
way, I did stop the clock.
Okay. So
well, I'm just saying, they're gonna have to come try to take my property, and it's not a lot of their property. And it's just not that big. And it's just a bad idea. It's not a good place to put all that. All that traffic's gonna come off Mulberry Street.
okay.
I challenge any of you on the council to go right over there and look at it.
Amen.
So, no more time on the,
No, there's still time.
okay.
Go right
Hi,
ahead.
I'm Phyllis Wells, and I live beside Gary, live on Mulberry Street, and I think it's going to be way too much traffic added to going onto Atlanta Highway. I agree with everyone about Mulberry Street. That is a very narrow street. The entire road. I mean, you're going to be taking out huge trees too if you widen that road, and it's going to be a strain on the infrastructure of the city. It's going to be a strain on the school system. And that's a beautiful piece of land. At one time, I've lived in Statham for 55 years, and one time that was a beautiful pecan orchard. And I'm not asking the people not to do anything with that land. That would be ridiculous for us to tell someone they couldn't do anything at all. But that would make a beautiful neighborhood of a couple of houses in there. And it can be used in a much better way. And I respectfully request that you not approve the commercial development or the townhouses.
We have not gotten to the commercial, at this point. Someone in the back raised their hand. Could you identify and?
A lot of what's been said, yes, I'm Joan King. A lot of what's been said has, I'm gonna repeat, sorry, but in a little different way maybe. Not only are they proposing these 62 homes, and he mentioned that it was gonna be townhouses for sale. Personally, I cannot imagine someone wanting to invest and buy a townhome in the state, in Statham. There's nothing here to draw someone to purchase a $200,000, $300,000 townhome. It's not gonna have swimming pool and tennis courts and all of that kind of infrastructure with it. Besides the water runoff, all that paving, the runoff, we would have just a flood. They may have some kind of little sewer little thing at the edge of the town or edge of the Atlanta Highway. That's going to be very attractive to have another city, a pond there that's a retaining right there at the edge of town. Years ago, Statham voted on limiting how small a house could be to prevent residents from, the in and out renters, the stress on the school systems of putting kids in a school, taking them out. It would turn into, because once it's rezoned, they can do whatever they want. They could make all kind of promises and promises, but it's gonna turn into an apartment complex for low income, and I know a low income people need housing too, but that's not the kind of town that we were trying to develop. Now, I noticed that in the description, y'all were talking about the use and the planning, and how much planning goes into, using these one-time fees that are assessed on them. But these are one-time fees that is very limited. It's not gonna be a lasting income from anybody. These people are not gonna be a tax-paying group of people. They, in fact, I mean, there's so much negativity that could go with it. But 16 homes, 60 homes, 52 homes, 62 homes right there. I challenge you to go to any small town in Georgia and show me a 3-block area around a strip mall and an apartment complex and tell me how improved the area is. It is not the kind of improvement that we need for Statham. Yes, we need a lot of planning and development in Statham, but not by developers. We need it to be where we see a growth that's what it's gonna look like in 50 years. I'll be dead in 10 probably, or less, but we need to look at what it is for our future and for the future of Statham. Are we gonna be a cesspool? Or are we gonna continue to just grow and just let it, you know, to this kind of, growth is great, but not this, not the, and it's increasing crime.
We've reached the 10-minute total.
Thank you, ma'am. So
Can
at
I
this
just say
point,
one thing, and I sit back here like a group. I don't believe in dumpsters. You know what things like this do, especially the front part that says it's gonna be commercial. I'm sorry about that.
Mayor,
Let me just say,
but
you put a
one second,
big dumpster out there.
one
I've
second,
seen wolf rats.
Mayor,
Y'all know what wolf rats are? You take shotguns to kill them.
one second, yes.
I'm just pointing out, 10 minutes have been reached. There's a reason for the 10-minute limitations to make sure that each side has the equal amount of time, and we can't allow any excess of the 10 minutes.
Can I speak on the
So-
minutes left on the proposed side, or 4?
If you're for, yeah.
Well, here's
You're not allowed to take the other side.
No, I just have questions, so I'm not for or against, I just have questions that would kind of help me make up my mind, and there's no category for that, so.
If the proponent wants to allow.
It really
yeah.
does go to you. Okay. Okay. My questions are going to be, do you already have a development that has the structures that you're proposing, just like this, that we have not seen a map or seen what is going to be proposed? I'm a visual person, I like that. So that would help. Has there been, or is there going to be, or is there a need for a state road study? In other words, how much traffic is coming? Because after Jerry spoke, there's valid concerns because there was a dirt road he was not aware of. And you do have to meet your runoff, you do have to meet your easements, your utilities. So how much, and that will change your structure. That will change possibly how many homes you can put there. The other thing is, anyone can buy a house and then rent a house. Mm-hmm. You can't guarantee it. You can't guarantee anything, and you cannot then hold it against someone. But my other question would be, and this may be stupid, but on your townhouses, you say 62. Is your townhouses 2 units per the 62, or is it? What do you define your townhouses as?
There's single-family townhomes. They're attached. They're on the site plan now. There's clusters of 6. They're single-family. They're anywhere from 1,725 square feet to 1,790 square feet. I mean, they're going to be comprised of at least 40% brick.
Okay, but a unit, when you say you have 62 units, is it 62 individual or?
62 individual single-family dwellings.
They're attached to each other, they're not individual.
They're not all 62 are attached. It's not an apartment complex. These are single-family homes.
Okay, but that's what I'm trying to figure out. Is there 31 because there's 2 units attached to it, or is there 62 individual? And what would be the sizes of the home and the lot size of these units?
So there, in the recommendations, there's, like I said, the minimum lot size is 2,400 square feet, which our lot sizes would be bigger than that based on how it sits right now. But they are attached, so on the site plan, there's 6 attached, there's 4 attached. They're broken up around where the site plan goes.
Okay, I got you.
But there's gonna be anywhere from 7, we have 3 different floor plans, 9 different elevations of the plans. So 9 different looks of 3 different floor plans. That'll be anywhere from 1,725 square feet to 1,790 square feet. They're gonna be nice homes, they're not, cookie cutter or anything like that. These are nice homes, and they're gonna be sold at a good price. So it's not,
Okay.
the plan is to make it, to better the area and make it nice.
So when would the update be, I guess, between you guys, that the citizens may be able to see, to meet all the, what Jerry said, with, you're gonna have to have a paved road, you're gonna have to do your runoff studies, because if you're paving your roads inside, you have to have retention pond 1 or 2. And then I'm worried about the impact on the runoff, just on that land alone is pretty steep, how it's going to, enter our sewer, and how is the ballot concern, is our utility, can we provide enough for any growth? We are trying to catch up with growth. So those are my questions, but afterwards I'd kind of like to see if you've developed something where I can see it.
Math.
Well,
That's fine.
yeah, but I think it should more be where the citizens can kind of get visual too. That would help me.
no sewer on Mulberry.
There's no sewer on Mulberry.
There's sewer on Atlanta Highway though. That would also be extending the city of Statham's, water distribution network, so I think we'd be making it better.
Water distribution use.
There's an existing 12-inch line.
We don't have.
We out of time.
We don't have sewer.
Sewer on Atlanta. Oh, we would do
Talk about.
Yeah, Mayor, I know before, we've reached a point where
We're
I don't know what
over,
we're getting.
we're over on the time. So, I appreciate everyone's comments, concerns. That is the purpose of a public hearing, is to hear what the concerns are.
I have a question.
And this is,
To them, not to them.
so,
I have a question to y'all. Can I ask a question? Please.
I'll give you 2 minutes,
Well,
because we are outside of the time.
Just 1 minute. Can this be tabled before y'all vote, have a vote and approve, or just, can we get a new updated plan from him, a new updated visual plan from him of reality and how it would, and an impact statement on how it would affect our resources before anybody starts voting again, or just go ahead and just say no?
I'll let you know where I'm at. I'm in a position where there are so many unanswered questions and so much opposition. I don't feel like it would be fair to the citizens with a new, with a brand new council coming in for us to take any action on this very delicate matter involving our city until the new council members are in place and seated, and all of the engineering questions and all of the tough stuff and the tough questions are answered. But that's just where I'm at, so.
Let me just address the public on this issue. This will come before the council in 12 days. At that point, the council can make a motion to accept it, to reject it, or to table it until the following month and vote on it, which would be mid-December. I don't know the date off the top of my head. So to answer some of the concerns, I would say probably that is a possibility to get more information. But it is not in granite, okay? This is not a voting session. This is a public hearing.
I mean, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, I thought everything he would have to do all of his updates and everything before rezone would come in. Wouldn't you have to do, I mean,
Yeah, we closed the public hearing.
Yes,
The public hearing.
well, I'm just asking you a question, I wasn't asking a
So-
public hearing.
so I mean, that is the best that I can tell you, that this is not a voting session, this was a public hearing. So we've had it on the presidential votes for the private. The next thing on the agenda is R-21-09 for Presidential Oaks Properties LLC. And again, this is by Mitchell Trust, applicant. Margaret Ann Hamway, property owner, seeks to rezone 2.6 acres fronting the south side of 1811 Atlanta Highway. Southeast map parcel is STO1 /024 and part of ST02/029, ST01 /0258, ST01/025 from SR1 Suburban Residential 1 District to Highway Business District for proposed use of commercial. So at this point, you have a report for the council, Mr. White.
Yes, Mayor and Council, the staff recommendation on this item is for approval with 3 conditions. The applicant can present the application itself, but it's for 4 different tracts of land that could be developed, 3 of which are contiguous. One is at the corner of the highway with Mulberry Street, and the staff recommendation is that it meets the criteria for zoning decisions. It's consistent with the commercial recommendation of the future land use plan. And some of the conditions relate to prohibiting some of the uses that are allowed outright. I'm not going to go through that long list, but there's a very long list of items that would not be appropriate at that location in the highway business district. That would limit the height of the buildings to 2 stories or 40 feet, and then there's one about the water and sewer, provision of water and sewer. That's all I need to say at this point, Mayor and Council, unless you have questions for me.
Council members, anyone have a question for Mr. Weiss in reference to R-21-09?
Question.
Okay. So, no
I have a question.
questions, 1 second, ma'am. No questions from the council. You do?
I have none.
Okay. All right, so then at this point, you are you are the applicant, so you have up to 10 minutes to speak in reference to this proposal.
I mean, during the opposition period, yes, absolutely. It's a matter of keeping it in sequence.
The 2 properties go hand in hand, so was one piece, and we're trying to separate them, so they kind of work together. But again, we're willing to meet all of the conditions that they recommend, and anything else that is suggested, we're willing to work with. But like I said, if one doesn't go through, the other one probably won't go through for us.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak as a proponent to this proposal? Okay, at this point, do you reserve time if needed at the end as the presenter and applicant? All right, so I guess at this point now, in opposition, the first individual that would like to speak? Yes.
Well, excuse me, that's spine surgery recently, so I'm not too stable. John King, anyway. My question was to Mr.
Weiss.
Weiss, okay. In some of the things that you didn't want to go into, since this would be a commercial setting facing Atlanta Highway, then of course they would have little driveways going into each one of those little businesses and such. Correct? But a little while ago, they had said that, because that was the low end of the property, the holding zone, water zone, kind of little holding pond would be there, so with all the pavement from all of these things, besides the pavement from the apartment complex, and what makes the apartment complexes would be all draining to this road frontage right there on the Atlanta Highway. But then it wasn't acceptable for them to build a road there to their apartment complex because it wasn't useful as road frontage for the apartment complex. But it's apparently then someone thinks that it's appropriate, then well, let's just pave it all in and make it businesses. So it just the two doesn't go hand in hand. You can't say it's not appropriate for a road or whatever, or to have another driveway for the apartment complex there, but then you're going to make it a driveway for hundreds of businesses, visiting customers, or, employees to drive in and park constantly. It's just, in our road frontage, Atlanta Highway really doesn't need that. But again, I challenge you to go to any small town. It's about developing what Statham is going to look like in a few years. Do we want Statham to become this place where there's empty, we already have empty buildings. Do we want more? I mean, we see them everywhere you go, that there's empty strip malls everywhere, and they're just an eyesore that's taking up space, but still have concrete, still have water problems. Anyway.
Anyone else?
Yeah, my concern is coming off Mulberry.
Okay.
Sure, okay. My question's gonna be, seeing that you're gonna bring in commercial, do you have an idea of your usage and how many businesses it would be?
No,
Okay,
we don't have a plan for commercial, as of now.
okay.
As far as the recommendations and what they suggest, cannot be used there, we are willing to follow those recommendations.
Okay, because I would think if you're going to develop something, you'd have some kind of visual of what kind of businesses that would enhance. And if it's a subdivision back there, of course, hopefully a restaurant, whatever.
Yeah.
That would be my concern, is what kind of, you can have a list of what you can't have, but, it would be nice to know what is the intent to go in there. Because I know sometimes you build storefronts and then you wait for someone to come in. Okay, so is it separate units or one unit, or do you have an estimate of how many possibly?
At this time, we do not.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you mind if I explain something just real quick,
Okay.
just to help maybe provide a little bit of understanding? And correct me if I'm wrong, but I understand that you want to see visuals and all of that. I get that, because I think that's a completely reasonable question to ask for any development, whether it's commercial or residential. But the way that the planning process works, and I'm just trying to help everybody gain a little bit better understanding, the first thing that he's doing is just trying to get a rezone, right, to be able to do any of these things. So he may have, they do have like a concept plan, but actual visuals, they don't have at this point in the game. Now, with that being said, the same goes for even residential development. Even if something was zoned an SR1, and a developer comes in and wants to develop that property under the SR1 guidelines, right? Even if they stick with exactly what it's intended to be. Same thing. You know, they may have a concept plan, and then they have to get a preliminary plat approval. After they get a preliminary plat approval, which is basically a concept, right? But it goes from concept to preliminary plat to final plat. Once you have the final plat approved, once you go through all of these different stages, that's when you're providing the details of what the council wants. You know, we would like to have brick facades. We would like to have, you know, the details of the actual structure. So at this point, you know, when he's saying, no, I do not have commercial, I don't know how many buildings, they're just trying to get it rezoned to commercial at this point. Now, when I talked to the applicant's partner several weeks ago, he said that his idea was to make a business complex and to have more professional type of businesses in there. Maybe it might be a doctor's office, maybe it might be something like that. But he was, in his mind, he is wanting to develop a professional commercial building, okay, that is facing Atlanta Highway with the townhomes in the back. Now, and just to help answer Ms. Venable's question when she kept asking about the buildings, I think it's how many buildings per, you know, so they might only allow, the acreage might only allow 12 buildings, right, total. I mean, just based on number of space and density. So they're,
I hate to say this, we've gotten off the rails. So,
Yeah.
now my turn. The purpose of a public hearing is to hear comments and concerns. Typically, these kinds of questions are answered in private meetings between the developer and the citizens. This is truly a decision-making public hearing, meaning arguments for, arguments against. It's not more an informational session. Those are usually done offline, not on city time. That's the way the Zoning Procedures Act from the state of Georgia is structured. So, if there are, again, all the questions that are being asked are 1,000% legitimate. This is not the forum for that. Typically, when there's this level of concern or questions, private meetings are held between developer and citizens to answer some of those questions.
And how do you get that opportunity?
Contacting the developer. I'm sorry? No, I'm sorry. What was that?
I was saying, we're Tim. It sounds like you might want to set up a meeting, buddy.
I'm just simply saying that, again, following the Zoning Procedures Act, that's what.
I understand what this meeting is, and do you mind if I say something now?
Yes, and then there's the lady in back too.
Absolutely, yes,
Okay. Get right back to the same problem of the infrastructure of what's there now and what's to be added, and the cost analysis of it, not just to the developer, but to the city. You're going to have you may have a one-time fee that's out of sight that can be used, but you're still going to have to pay and spend a lot of money to bring the city's infrastructure that you're responsible for up to par to meet what they're going to need to put these buildings in, to put these houses in that smaller area with that kind of road frontage, with that kind of traffic zone. And then and then you're, like I say, you get into the school, get into our water shortage as it is, how much you got to put in another well.
That's the plan.
Another water tank.
And all of that. I mean, there's a lot of other things that's involved in it. And I'm still in opposition to it.
Okay. The lady in the back, you had your hand up. You, yeah,
Okay.
I'll let you
We
go.
are the adjacent property owners, and we're residential facing Atlanta Highway. So what I want to know is, with a commercial development, is there a buffer area separating the residential from the commercial? And one other question is, in the city of Statham, do you have a designation for office institutional rather than commercial business highway? And if so, would that not be a better fit for the developer rather than commercial? Because under commercial business highway, unless this is an exception, and we don't know what the exceptions are, you could have right next door to the residential property, convenience store that's open 24 hours or gas station. You know, the thing that I'm interested in is the quality of life for, our property, for the residents. So I'm just asking these questions so that, we'll have a better understanding of exactly, what the ramifications are for the redevelopment.
Thank you.
Noise and lights,
Yes, and all that.
Go ahead.
My turn?
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that before you vote, I would urge all of you to go to the Gwinnett County side of Auburn and see what has been done there. Their land has been stripped, and they have townhouses.
Yeah.
And it is not a pretty sight. It's not what Statham needs to be. And as far as the businesses go, I just think that in addition to what the townhomes would bring as far as traffic, bringing business right there, it's just not suitable for that land.
Thank you. Yes.
I know you don't want to hear from me.
Why? You're a citizen.
I think we need to use smart growth planning, and we don't want to look like Winder. We don't want to look like Auburn. We want to look like Statham. And we need to start looking at how we look when we come into this town.
I think that's the purpose of this hearing.
Yes. So I think that, having businesses out there are fine, but it's highly residential there. And we need to think about the citizens and how that's going to impact them. It is going to impact them, it's going to impact the city, and it's going to impact the schools and everything. I'm not, again, against, because I think that there was an approval for that to be townhomes. And I don't know, I don't have any plans to look at, which really bother me because I'm visual, so it's hard. But I do believe that there are residents here that have invested in our city, have lived here a long time, and it's going to affect their property. And we need to look at that very strongly.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a question. I'm kind of understanding what they're saying about the 9 acres and then the 2 whatever. So is all of that supposed to be paid from one end of it? The whole 11 acre thing is supposed to be paid? Because I'm thinking if you got something coming off Atlanta Highway where they're going into businesses, are they going to be able to go to the businesses through the townhomes and come out on our Mulberry Street, which is already difficult to travel, and, you know, like I said, you're taking away our living space and our comfort if that happens. So I just want to know what's the plan for that?
All the businesses will be accessed off Atlanta Highway, and you will not be able to get through to the townhouse development from the businesses. There'll be separate parking lots for the businesses, and separate entrances for the townhouse development.
Well, that may be true, but it's already very hard to get out of Mulberry onto Atlanta Highway a lot of times. And I just cannot imagine adding all that extra traffic right there in that corner. I mean, you know, if anybody thinks it's gonna be a good idea, I mean, I don't wanna be, God forgive me, I don't wanna be ugly or anything, but, you know, you need to try to imagine if it's your backyard and somebody's trying to do that in your backyard and affect your way of life and way of living.
To the developer, why not just develop it into a real subdivision with, you know, 1 acre lots or 1/2 acre lots for homes to be put in there instead of these apartment complexes and a strip mall that's going to be stripped. Why strip and just go ahead and develop it? You'd make just as much money probably with selling $300,000 homes. we need people to come in who's got an interest in the home and in maintaining, not people who are gonna be renting constantly and moving and going from place to place. Nobody really cares about that. We need stability, not stability.
Any other comments? Is there any time left?
No, we've actually literally just reached the 10 minutes.
Okay. Well, I want to thank everyone on that. At this point, I'm going to ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing there.
Second. All those in favor? Next on the agenda. Discussion item number 1 is impact fees. Purpose of this is to discuss the city implementing and utilizing impact fees. And impact fees, which are a one-time fee charged to land developers to help defray the cost of expanding capital facilities to serve new growth, and can be a substantial source of revenue for financing capital improvements. Impact fees funds are utilized for specific improvement categories. For example, the public improvements would include parks and recreation, open spaces, public safety facilities, stormwater facilities, water supply, production, treatment, and distribution facilities, your roads, streets, bridges, which we don't have at this point, landscaping, and any components of state or federal highway. With proper planning and execution, the city's impact fees schedule of improvements can be established for a 5-year plan and up to a 20-year plan. The cost to prepare lost my line. The cost to prepare, plan, and process impact fees, which entail an amendment to the comprehensive plan, an impact fee ordinance, structure of the fee, complying with the planning required by the Georgia Development Impact Fee Act, developing capital improvement elements is approximately $10,000 to $15,000, and all of which is reimbursable and reimbursable expenses. And
What does that mean?
bottom line is, some people say it's just another tax. Well, it's not. It's an impact fee, which sounds like double talk. The public that lives here right now pays their city taxes, pay their county taxes, pay for the water and the sewer. Impact fees are homes that are being built, new homes being built, and they add, for instance, say $3,000 to the cost of that home. And of course, everybody knows that the developer is going to pass that on to the person that buys that. All right. Now, you can delegate and designate those funds. So, for instance, you can say we're going to put 10% of it aside to have our own public library. Instead of the Piedmont Regional Library, we could have our own. You can say we're going to put 40% of those funds towards building a municipality complex or a municipal court, which could also double as a council chamber and public hearing area. Okay, you can designate a portion of those funds. It's not usually done, but for instance, just for lack of words, towards improvements on roads. Okay, because those new homes impact your your city and all your utilities. It impacts your water system, you know, and taxes. What is already, as been discussed here, it's already, you know, been kind of under stress. So it's not on each individual home, it's a one-time fee, as I said, that would be only on new homes. But you set it up, there is a cost, as it says, $10,000 to $15,000 to set this up, but it would be reimbursed back to the city. And once it's set up and you designate those fees, they're in protected accounts so that, for instance, a couple of years ago, they said they could build an annex over here next to City Hall, and it would be for the purpose of like municipal court, and it could be doubled for council to meet and have your public hearings, and it would be an expansion of City Hall. The cost of that 3 years ago, almost 4 years ago, was $300,000. In today's market, because everybody knows the cost of everything has gone through the roof, it might be a $500,000. So if you had 200 homes that were built, brand new built, and you collected $3,000 for each of those, you'd have approximately $600,000 if I do my math correctly. So right there is your complex. That's $500,000 to build it. So if you designate a portion of that to go to improve our parks and light them, we've got ballparks, but it's dusk to dawn. So if we had the ability, and we could improve our parks, and it's been discussed before, the young people want something to do. They want nice parks. Gwinnett has them. That's the upside to Gwinnett. The downsides, as everybody has said, we don't want to be Gwinnett, we don't want this. But if you've been to the parks in Gwinnett County, they are outstanding, okay? So, you know, that's the purpose of impact fees. So that the brunt is not being pulled or put by the existing citizens. You're not asking them, okay, I want everybody to pay an additional $3,000 a year because we're going to improve our parks. That because they would be impacted by new development, those would be the individuals that would be paying for us to increase and develop those so that it would be welcome to everyone. So everyone would benefit from it, but because there's being more stress put on those particular items, the monies would be put towards taking the pressure off, so to speak.
So it's a permit fee then?
No.
Yeah, the answer is yes.
Oh, okay.
So if I were to buy an acre of land in the city of Statham and want to build a personal home for myself, besides getting the permit to build, paying for the land, I would also have to pay an impact fee to build the house.
$10,000 to $15,000.
$10,000 to $15,000.
No. Well,
That's what it would cost.
Mayor, you should probably explain what the $10,000 to $15,000 in the agenda
Or
is.
Jerry's more than welcome.
I would rather go with the professional on explaining that than for me to.
But it's
give you the
another
wrong.
fee
So,
assessed on the home builder, or the landowner, personal, not a developer, you know, but the developers, they're gonna have to pay all kinds of crap. But I'm talking about an individual person who bought some land and they want to build their own home, that's their dream home. They've gotta pay now, besides the permit fees and all the licensing and those, now they have to also pay a new tax called an impact fee. And they're gonna live here for all these years and pay taxes every single year on that property. But they still have to pay a preemptive impact fee because of how they're building that one house is going to impact their community.
because I'm sorry, ma'am, I can't answer that as an individual. I thought it was developers, but he will
Yeah, Mayor, let me start with reinforcing the point you were making, which I think you got it across, but I just want to reinforce to make sure that the citizens know that you have on this public hearing agenda the ad valorem tax, how much you're going to pay for that. That is effective. What the purpose of an impact fee program is, as you were saying, Mayor, is if you don't collect money of that sort from developers as they build new houses and new shopping centers and so forth, you'll get the development and you'll get the impact of that development, but you'll leave all of the rest of the citizens to pay for the cost of whatever is needed to upgrade that. If it means more police stations or a bigger city hall, et cetera, more library space, et cetera. So the advantage of why fast-growing communities do adopt impact fees is to reduce the burden on existing residents who are paying taxes. And again, the alternative is if you don't have them, you have to probably raise taxes as the impact for new facilities goes up. So with the amount on that was read of $10,000 to $15,000, that's not a fee. That's an estimate from me as to what it would cost to put a program in place. It's not the actual fee. We don't know what the fee would be. The fee, it depends on what you're going to charge it for, and none of that has been determined yet. There's some things that are eligible, like roads, that are too complicated and expensive for us to go into. But then there's others that might work, like libraries. It's a little bit complex, but police and parks are the ones that are within the city's control that would probably be the easiest ones to do to charge an impact fee. It is not a tax. It's called a regulatory fee. That may not make a difference to anybody, but I mean, you're paying fees now to connect to water and sewer. You pay several $1,000s. So I mean, it's basically you pay a building permit fee, you pay development permit fees if you're developing land. That's basically the cost of doing business. And the building permit fee pays for inspections. Impact fees pay to offset the cost of certain impacts that house or that shopping center would have on different on the city's budget and county budget if you choose to collect it that way. So that's.
So again, is it for developers or for individuals?
But really,
I mean, y'all can use the word
is there-
developers, but is it for the individual person?
Is there a way to write it?
It starts at the time of the building permit. So you would say then it would be builders that are charged the fee.
I think they're asking
Any
about
new building or
individual houses.
development. Anything bigger.
Anything.
If you're the builder and you're building a house there, you're gonna have to pay an impact fee.
Is there a way where you can write it to where it's only large developers?
No, legally you cannot do that.
There
Violation
is,
of equal protection.
I would suggest you strongly study impact fees because there's a lot of pros and cons for that. We've been down that road before and decided not to do them, but, people need to know the pros and cons. I know you're saying a lot of pros right here. There are cons to it.
Well, and that is why we are where we're at right now. We are growing, as everyone here has said. We had no impact fees, so all of us, including me as a citizen, are paying, basically, we're paying for the sins of the father, so to speak, okay?
Well, let me
So this is something to
Control your
help
growth instead.
moving. What's that?
Control your growth instead of doing impact fees. Have
Well,
smart growth.
there is, and that's why we have zoning maps and things of that
Impact
nature.
fees devalue land.
So if you control, you can control the growth, but you can't tell people that they can't develop their land. So it's a real sticky
You can have
area.
rules about what's developed and what you want.
Exactly, and that's why we have zoning maps.
Yeah, I don't like that
Okay.
either. The big red spots where I live,
So,
and you decide, yeah, paint it red.
that's highway business out there, and that's been
What you
highway
think?
business, or
No.
something similar to it.
No.
Mayor, I'd like to
No,
say
this is a
something.
new one.
So, go
This is a
ahead.
new one.
I'm gonna hear.
I've never made
Yeah.
any bones about it. I don't like impact fees. I'm not a fan of fees in general, but To me, impact fees are just another fee that we're gonna place on a homeowner. It's gonna get passed on to the homeowner, and housing prices are already
Thank you.
pretty high in this area. So I'm a firm believer, the more you have, the more you want. Anybody that makes more money at work is gonna want more money. They're gonna find ways to spend it. And I know the city is struggling, it needs money. But we're already paying property taxes. We're already paying special purpose local option sales tax. And I ain't gonna get into the state and the federal stuff of, income tax and so forth. We're paying permit fees, we're paying inspection fees, we're having to pay for water and sewer taps. I understand the argument of how an impact fee can possibly offset the cost to the city, but we all moved here at some point, and we all impacted the city at some point. When we built our house or somebody built that house, we didn't pay an impact fee. I would just hate to know, taking the council person hat off for just a moment, as a citizen, I would hate to know that I would have to pay another fee on top of all the fees that we already paid. Again, that's just my opinion.
But it's not you and I, as citizens, that pay this fee, it's new homes. And to give you an idea, you mentioned the water tap, okay? I said we did several of them over on Dock McLaughlin. That cost the city, we collected $3,000. Do you know what it cost the city to drill it? We had to bore under the road to the tune of $8,000 each tap. So we collected $3,000 in the city because we can't say, well, it's going to cost $8,000 for yours, and it's going to cost $1,000 for yours. So we set a fee of $3,000. So sometimes, yeah, it only costs us $1,200, $1,500, and the rest goes into the general fund. But Dock McLaughlin, about $8,000 per tap. We did 6 of them down on Providence, and they were about $5,000 a piece. So those are things that, as a city, that we have to take into account, and it's just the cost of doing business. But you're saying that you want your parks and your recreations improved. You're saying you want your roads improved. You say that you want to have better things, and you want more and better water, and then you oppose an impact fee that when it comes, and we're already behind the 8 ball right now, and we bring in another, till they build Sunset, okay, they build the 50 homes over there, which are already approved in 2007 and 8. We build the ones over, 67 of them over at Lakes Statham, approved in 2008. A lot of it before this administration. There's at least 200 homes, okay, that's going to come in. And as somebody said, take it times 2 drivers coming in and out of there every single day of every day of the year. And your roads are going to get in worse shape, okay? So that's the purpose of an impact. Am I in favor of it? No, but it is incoming building that it is put on, and it's not annual.
That's a one-time
A one-time fee.
Yeah, but, I know that you're for it because you're laying out, but that McLaughlin road over there, it shouldn't have cost the city anything to
There
go
were
around
our
there.
service
You should
delivery.
have made sure the developer did that whenever you approved that plat. So if you're saying the city had to approve that cost, then you made a big mistake when you approved that plat. So, and I'd like to hear from some of
We
the
didn't
council
approve that
members too.
plat, that's county, but it's on our service delivery area.
Well,
And there's
the
a big
developer
difference.
should still have to do that.
Okay, point taken.
What is other council members,
Well, I would like to speak to this, and this has come up, this impact fee has been addressed to the council within a year, and we didn't approve it, and none of us liked it a year ago, and I don't like it right now. And I'll tell you why. if you say it's a new tax, it has a terrible rub. But if you rebrand something, and call it something else, it might be a little bit more palatable because the people don't have a true understanding of what it's for. So a fee doesn't sound as bad as a tax, but I firmly believe that it's just another tax. The city is receiving more money for services than they previously had. I agree with Councilman Venable that the city gets more money, they spend more money. It's you know, a cyclical thing about money in and money out. But to say that everybody new coming in from this point forward is going to pay for all the parks and the infrastructure and the water, it's not fair to them. It's not fair to the growth. We need to find other ways to raise money, and I think we can do it if we work together. There's a list here from the Department of Community Affairs about other cities and counties that are collecting impact fees. And a lot of these cities are Atlanta, Alpharetta. A lot of these cities are not even in our league. They have millions and millions and millions. Roswell, Alpharetta, none of these cities are even close to our league. I know Christian's in there, the city of Jefferson's in there, and maybe that's going well for them, but I just feel like we need to find a different way to raise money and sustain the growth. And you know, I just don't, I didn't like it then and I don't like it now. I don't know how it came back up on the agenda again with the same council not approving it then. And so I'm just telling you where I'm at with it. So, don't mind it.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Mary, you said that you gave the example of 3,000, and then you stated you weren't sure what it was going to be because you haven't formulated yet. In order to really make a good decision, an educated decision, you need all the information, and to be pertinent would really validate what is the true cost and how you inform us how you're even coming to getting that cost. Is it equal for everyone, or is it the size of your home, or is it the size of your land? But when would you know that information before you vote? What would the formula be for the impact fees? Would they all be the same or different?
There's no formula. You're saying, is it the size? It's a house, okay? If the house is 1,600 square feet of heated, if it's 2,200, it's a flat fee.
So
I just use 3,000 because it's easy math, okay? As far as what it's used for, you could say there's three categories. One category is we're going to put 40% of it towards our police department, our public safety department, okay? You can put 40% of it would be set aside towards a complex that I've heard tossed around numerous times before I was even in this seat. And then you could say, we're going to put 10% towards our library. Even if it's not to build the library, this city pays for that library free room and board. There's utilities and everything over there to the tune of about $90,000 a year.
And
okay?
many
So you could say
cities,
10% would go to supporting our library, and that's money that wouldn't come out of our budget.
well, many,
Okay.
I work for government, so I know many cities and counties, they give money to help out with their local, within their community. But I guess my question is going to be, what is going to be the dollar amount for that impact fee? And I would, even if you don't have it tonight, I would hope before you even go for a vote, you can let us citizens know a number of what that would be for people that are going to build for home.
I think April has an idea.
Typical dollar amount. Jerry, I'm sure you know,
is just under $3,000 per dwelling unit.
Okay, and it
For
doesn't matter the
for
size.
public safety, for police and fire and park.
Okay.
To answer that one, we don't know until we do the program. If the council doesn't support it and you don't want to go ahead with doing the program, then we just
Then
won't
you
do
never know.
we won't do the program, but you run the numbers, it's a study, it's an impact cost that you calculate. You have to decide what you're providing, what your level of service is, and you won't ever know that number until you go through and actually prepare the
And
program.
I just used
So we'll be
3,000.
spending money on a cost study that we may vote against anyway.
No.
Because if you have an impact fee, then it's an incentive for the council members actually in the future.
No, I don't believe
It's an
that.
incentive for the council members to always vote for new growth and new subdivisions and stuff, because this is a one-time fee. There's not that many individual people who's gonna build a new home inside the city limits of Statham every single year that would support these programs if you're using those dollars to be the budget for the parks or budget for the increasing. If we have a new home, an individual person who's building a home, not a subdivision, we don't need a bunch of new subdivisions. But if someone's splitting their 2-acre lot and building their son's house or something, but it would be an incentive then for the council members to vote for these strip malls and to vote because they'll be getting these impact fees that are not coming in from their regular customer base. I just don't see we don't need to, I say we don't need to spend the money on an impact study that's gonna be $10,000 to $15,000 for the study when it's just not a fair program anyway.
I have a quick statement. Just to put it in perspective, Presidential Oaks gonna cost you an extra $200,000 at $3,000 a unit. How does that rub you for developing here? No? Yes? I mean, so now we run the risk of running off developers because the next town or community over, guess what? They don't have impact fees. And that $2,000 or $3,000 is gonna end up costing us $30 down the road. I think we need to really look at what we're asking and who we're asking, so.
Just increases the amount of what your building permit is by a couple of hundred or something, but not add another several $1,000s impact fee per. If you're short of funds, then we need to look at how we cut our budget. How do we redesign our budget plan so that it's more efficient?
Any other comments? Okay, next item for discussion is preliminary plat for Statham Place. Application for preliminary plat approval for Statham Place. Statham Engineering LLC is the applicant. Sorry, I was bringing MHC of Georgia LLC, property owner. 36 lots on a 48.1 acre, fronting the southeast side of Dooleytown Road, part of parcel ST04095C, ST04095. The applicant, Solon, who's representing Solon?
I'm Logan Moss. I work for the
I'm sorry, you're who?
Logan Moss.
Please keep the comments down until he gets an opportunity.
Yes, sir. I'm Logan Moss. I work for the builder. I'm the acquisition manager and development manager, so any questions, feel free to ask. But we are just trying to put 36 lots on 48 acres of land. Septic subdivision. We've already got some houses going up on 211 right now. I think it's houses will generate quite a good bit of tax revenue for y'all. So, the bigger, lot, they're all about 1.5 acres. Just for example, the houses that share driveways on 211, and by shared driveways, we had no choice. That's a DOT thing. I couldn't do their own driveways. We just had, those are the cards we were dealt. So, we had to share those driveways. I know it's not pretty, but we tried to make it pretty with the ferns down the middle of it. They'll grow up big and they'll separate eventually. But it's a big lot. So hopefully there's no issue there. Any questions?
What part of Deweytown is this on? I'm sorry.
It's right. Building this product, you might call me crazy, but it's right there adjacent to the trailer park. So,
Okay.
Put it in perspective, 10 homes going down 211, it will be behind that,
Oh, okay.
going
The
over
new one's
to
on the front.
Deweytown.
Yeah, I got it. I got it.
So it would be behind those 10 homes,
yes,
and the only access is off of Deweytown.
yes,
Okay, I know where you're at now.
yes.
There's another subdivision in the county.
Yes, around the other backside.
Was that y'all too?
No, it's not.
Okay.
We're, first house we built was 211.
You said septic, right?
Yes.
What size home?
That'd be between 2,000 and 2,400 square foot.
So they'll have city water
Yes,
and septic system.
and we've already got approval on our city water for that as well, so they will access it.
Is our sewage up that way or no?
No, those are the septic.
Oh,
That's why they're approximately an acre each. The health department makes that ruling. You have to have,
Yes.
it used to be a half acre, now you have.
Well, I mean, Drainfield's huge too, so I mean, you
Right.
can't really do anything less. I think the bare minimum is like 0.78 acres is what you can do, but ours is a little bit bigger.
Does council have any questions for the applicant? What choice do we have?
I think the tax money revenue that you get from these houses will surpass any, upgrades to your water.
The first well is gonna cost us approximately 420,000. And that, the relief monies, if it is decided by the council to put it toward the second well, it would go a long way to making us more independent. Like I said, if this first well is approved by the state, that gives us 2/3 of what we need to support what we have now. Another well, we wouldn't even need the 54-acre lake. We could take our time in getting that squared away. But, again, this is I guess a proposal here. No one on the council has any questions? Anyone in the audience tonight has questions in reference to this? Yes?
Are there, just, this is a question, are there, about water, are there any plans to fix the water filtration plant that's been closed for 2 years?
That we have applied for 2 grants that have nothing to do with our audits, okay? Although, by the end of this year, we should have fiscal 2020 finished, in which case we can apply for other grants and LMIG and a lot of other things. But these grants, one would dredge the lake and get it down to where you don't have a lot of the problem with the algae and what they always call the turnover. Well, the taste is everything to people. If it's not palatable, it can pass the EPA standards all day long. If you can't get it past this, it's no good. But one of them would be to dredge that lake and put in a tier system, and it would pump the water from the lake into the first chamber, allow for sediment, pump it in from the top of that to the next chamber, and allow more settlement, and then into the third, and then pump out of it. Another grant would upgrade the filtration system at the plant and bring it more into the 21st century. And yes, you are correct. There hasn't been any water pulled out of that plant in 2 years, and because of citizen opposition.
So with that water, if we have that working, would we be able then to sustain and not have to buy water from?
That plant is permitted. Each water system is permitted by the state to allow you a certain draw. The spring, for instance, is allowable up to 118,000 gallons per day. We typically run between 100 and 110 because you don't want to max it out. So because you don't want to drain it and everything else. There's a lot of factors, as you know. So we pulled approximately 110,000 gallons a day out of it. If we can get this well approved by the state and we can pull roughly 90,000 out of it, we're now at 200,000 of the 275,000 that we need to sustain current usage. That 54-acre lake and that filtration system of the plant is permitted for 1.2 million gallons a day.
So it's essential that
Which
we
is-
work on that first before we do too
Well,
many other things.
But we don't have money in the city. So we've applied for these grants that hopefully we will be able to do that and get it online. But in the meantime, we have to keep moving on, and that's why we drilled the first well. And hopefully the council would approve moving those funds into drilling a second well, which would go a long way to our independence, because dredging that lake, doing that tier system, and doing the filtration could be another 15 months to 2 years. So in the meantime, you can't wait until all of your eggs are in one basket, because by the time you start to eat them, they're no good. So, as silly as that may sound, it is a fact of life. So we've got to try and work within the monies that we have available. So, but yes, it would be 3 times more water than what we would need to sustain the city. However,
We can't use this money that's coming in from the stimulus to help fix, to dredge the lake and do that.
not enough. Go ahead.
The two, like the mayor just saying, we applied for 2 different grants. The other grant that we applied for was to replace the oldest water and sewer lines throughout the city. Okay, so there are 2 different grants that we applied for through the American Rescue Plan Act. We may or may not get those grants because those are available to any municipality or county or county and state. I mean, everybody's applying for the same amount of money. So the federal government has X amount of dollars available, everybody's applying for it.
They're just pregnant.
So, with that being said, your question with the $530,000 that we have already received, we basically can only use that for water and sewer infrastructure. Because to be able to receive those funds, you have to be able to qualify those funds within 3 or 4 different categories. Okay?
And that lake system thing doesn't fall in the category
Now,
of water filter?
Yeah, and I just learned this actually last week, but to dredge that entire lake, you're talking about a $5 or $6 million project.
Yeah.
And
It's very expensive.
it's very, very expensive. Now, the filtration system is that other part of the grant that we have applied for, And it does include dredging part of the lake right around the valves with the intake valve into the plant. Because if we can dredge that portion out that's right there next to the valve, the water will have, you know, it's giving more room for the water to settle before it actually goes into the plant. So, now the other grant, the one that I was telling you is far beyond my pay grade, the WVNDR, whatever, that federal grant, they have actually provided other grants for items such as dredging, and this is done through the Department of Natural Resources. And like I said, this one is far beyond my pay grade because I don't know enough about dredging to be able to answer the questions that they have requested. So I have reached out to our engineering firm to see if they could go ahead and apply for the grant on our behalf. Because they're the engineers, so they handle all of these types of questions. Now, so yes to your question, can't we use the money that we are receiving, that we've already received, the $530,000? Yes, and we already have plans for it because we've got a lot of stuff that we need to repair, fix, maintain, upgrade. So that money is basically already set aside for something. If we can get these two grants, just between these two grants that we've applied for, it's almost $5 million worth of grants, federal grants, for these two different projects. So fingers crossed, say a prayer, even if we got one, would be fantastic because it's, you know, financially, we just don't have the resources to be able to fund both of these projects simultaneously. You know, typically these types of projects would require a loan, you know, and, you know, everybody knows we're already paying on the 2012 sewer bonds until 2033. We almost have our other GFA loan paid off, but governments run on borrowing money and paying for projects such as this. Right now, we're just in a situation where we're already paying a lot of money out for our existing loans, so getting these two different grants would really just be would be wonderful for the city of St.
But the dredging part, if we're having to dredge now, if we need to dredge, how often do you have to do that? So is it every 10 years where we're out of water? Every 15 years that we are out of water again?
Well, we don't.
Because it needs to spend $5 million dredging it? Or is there a system that?
That's a really good question, and that was a question that I actually had for our engineer too. And a lot of it depends on rainfall. You know, a lot of it depends on how much stormwater
Watershed from all these paving places.
You know, runoff that you're getting. You know, well, where the lake sits, there's currently, that's a conservation area, so there isn't any building or anything there. That's just natural stormwater runoff that's going right into that lake.
And depending on how bad that is, how much sediment did you have?
Right.
How much sediment, how much algae. So that's why drilling wells, you don't have to contend with groundwater runoff.
Right.
Because you're below that. And that's why wells would be easier to even filter and process for drinking versus land or a pond that is subject to that runoff. Yes.
Yeah, because that spring has always been a good source.
Right, the spring is a great source.
They need to keep in mind though, as far as the aquifers of the water source that's underground that you're digging wells into. I know, and we've had to deal with it on the farms and all down there in the South Florida where you got everybody tapping into the water source in the aquifers to irrigate their crops. And everything dries up because there's only so much, there's only so much water up here in the sky, there's only so much here, and there's only so much down there. Okay.
Well, that lake over there used to be, it was a very deep lake at one time. It was very deep. So it's taken years and years for that to, filling up. And it kept pushing that pipe up. And it was making the water harder to treat.
Right.
You know, getting solar bees in to get the algae bloom. And it's a dredging lake. The dredging could probably last for a lot of years.
It's not a permanent solution. It's a temporary solution. But the length of time in between having to redo that temporary solution.
How are you with the drilling, the wells and everything, or is it gonna be work similar to what the, spring facility is like over there to get
The
it out
first
to
one that
people?
we've drilled is over, going in from Hillman Park and back in.
Okay, yeah, I
Okay.
understood that was.
So, yeah, it would be similar where they would pump it out closer to, the entrance where you go back in.
Mhm.
So it would be coming up pipe to like a spring house.
Yeah.
And that's where it would be treated
Yes,
and sent out. So there'd be some type of above ground holding tank and all of that, just like the spring is. So,
Okay, that's what I
yeah.
thought.
and, but as
So it's
far
not,
as if
so
you
each
do
well
the,
is not designated to supply water to this area and this area. It all comes together somewhere.
it all feeds into a network of piping.
So
and-
when you get the dredging done and everything, it just adds more water to it, plus the new wells, so then
Right.
you shouldn't have any problem.
And
But is there a way then, this dredging place or that lake, can it be limited to a certain area that it's,
Yeah, the water is just pulled into the water plant and distributed throughout the city.
Correct.
It's, the whole system is a network of valves. If we don't have enough, then we open up valves, and first we get it through Winder, okay? And if we get into the drought condition, Winder will shut us down because they have to supply theirs, okay? So then we have to go to the county. Well, Winder is about a third of the price we pay, that what we would pay the county. And the county does not, they don't cut any breaks. So we pay top dollar to the county. So we prefer to have our own, we don't. So then our second best choice is to get water through Winder. Until they say we can't give you any more, they shut down those valves, they open up the valves that brings in water from the county, which comes from Bear Creek, goes out, and comes right back to us. So it's very convoluted, complicated, but if we're gonna dredge that lake, it would be best to do it the right way, where we could get maybe 15 years or 20 years out of it. By that time, you know, we're looking at other avenues maybe. So, but,
Put it another way.
yeah, so, no, we want to get away from ground runoff. Okay. All right, any other questions in reference to this plat that we actually got a sidebar here with water?
Sorry, we like, I think it's a new subdivision in that area, it's appropriate. He's got all the right design, and it's gonna bring the tax base in, it sounds good.
No other questions? Yes,
Are there gonna
Council.
be any amenities, sidewalks, or, I don't know, I haven't seen
this is the man that can,
sidewalks, green space, any of
We
that.
got green space, we're not can't do amenities. You got detention area though, so you got a lot of detention, and then there's some unused in the pool with the green space on it. But no amenities.
Yeah, but you do best at when you say.
Yes, ma'am.
Sidewalk.
Yes, sidewalks. Yeah, sidewalks.
Yeah. I wish all that was sidewalk. You too. Yeah, I would love to have one done, Price Street.
any other questions or concerns at this point with this? Thank you very much. So, next on the agenda is citizen input. Has anyone signed up for any general conversation of any sort? Okay. So, and then I'm going to ask for, we all have the minutes from, it would be the draft minutes for October 19th, regular meeting and public hearing.
Motion to approve October 19th, 2021, minutes as written.
Second. Ms. Betty, second. All those in favor? Unanimous. So, at this point, is there a need for an executive session?
Mayor, there is an update that I can provide the council in executive session involving pending litigation. Given the lateness of the hour, however, it's just an update. There's no decisions that are required at this time with the council. So if y'all would like to, we don't have to have an executive session tonight. We can table that till the business meeting, but if y'all want an update, we can do it tonight. It's y'all's choice. It won't take long, it'll take about 5-10 minutes at most.
Mayor, I make a motion that we enter executive session for pending or potential litigation.
Second. Okay, all those in favor? Unanimous? We'll be back in a short.
Back down.
And a motion. Need a motion to come out of executive session.
I make a motion to come out of executive session.
Mayor, excuse me, ma'am, for the sake of the recording, for open meetings purposes, we need that silence in the chamber.
So,
I'll make a motion that we come out of executive session.
all those in favor?
The mayor and city council of the city of Statham adjourned into executive session to discuss matters, protected under the Open Meetings Act, specifically pending or potential litigation. No votes were taken. Copy of the affidavit and resolution will be included with the minutes.
I'll make a motion we adjourn.
All those in favor? Thank you, Tom.
I don't mind right now. Careful before you say that. Wait a minute.